Listen up, everybody. I know this is really early and it may be too soon according to certain people's opinions, but I need to address issues with Otherworld Battle right now. They already fixed the DDoS thing. That's great. They handled it well. They gave good compensation, 200 crystals, Odin's Blessing Selector, and all that. But this new game mode, and the game mode, one of the game modes that I believe is supposed to carry the game for the next few years, has major problems, and they have to be addressed ASAP. And I know I sound like a doomer. I know I sound like I'm creating a lot of hype and hyperbole, and I'm trying to get you guys all incensed. But I've seen this game for 8 years now, and I know how the devs like to just release a game mode and then completely ignore it for months or years. And we have prime examples of that with Alliance Tournament, etc. So I really do not want this game mode to be ignored, because I know that this game mode, I can see the bones in this game mode that have the potential to be really good. But in order for those things to happen, in order for this game to really blossom into what it's supposed to be, this game mode, 3 things 100% need to change. And we're going to start with the most important one by far: team diversity. If you take a look at the top teams here, you're going to see a shocking truth that we were all hoping to avoid. Thanos, Jean Grey, Carnage, Spider-Man, Wasp. Next team: Jean Grey, Thanos, Spider-Man, Carnage, Wasp. Next team: Thanos, Carnage, Spider-Man, Jean Grey, Wasp. Next team: Thanos, Jean Grey, Spider-Man, Gore, Wasp. Next team. Okay, you get the point by now. You can go down the list of the top 100 teams and it's all exactly the same. There's 1 or 2 small differences, but by and large, these teams are all identical. There's 6 or 7 characters in a pool, and you're just choosing the best 5 out of those 7, depending on how much of them you've built up. This is completely the worst scenario possible. The game is the game mode lasts 2 months with these restrictions. That means you're going to be seeing the same team 5 times a day for 2 months. I don't have to do the math on that. That's like 300 battles with the same shit over and over and over again. That's the same as Timeline Battle. That's the same as these other game modes. It's boring. It's awful. It's completely ridiculous. And you say, oh, but Alex, they introduced these things called battlefield effects. We don't have that in Timeline Battle. We don't have that in Alliance Tournament and Alliance Conquest. Yeah, you're right, bro. You're right. They did have 3 battlefield effects, and they're useless. They are useless. I just read you guys the lists that all the top players are using to win. They're using Jean Grey, they're using Thanos, they're using Gore, and sometimes they're using Hulk. Those 4 characters all match the descriptions and all meet the penalties here for the battlefield effect. So even though Jean has a 35% defense decrease, so her defense is being decreased by 35%, and her damage is being decreased by 300%, she's still stronger than anyone else you can use. She's still valuable for PvP. It's just, it does not work. This battlefield effect thing is not good enough. I don't know, add another 0. I don't care what you have to do, but the whole point of these battlefield effects was to do a sort of soft ban, right? I'm pretty sure the devs' intention with this design was to sort of soft ban Jean and Gore and Thanos and Hulk, and then to push everyone to try other characters, to sort of create and encourage build diversity. But the problem is that the devs made these characters, Jean Grey, Thanos, Gore, Hulk, they made them too strong. And clearly they did, because even with these insane buffs, Jean is still too strong. I'll give you guys a live example here. Okay, we're not going to fight that guy because he's got a tier 4 Spider-Man. That's terrifying. Okay, I don't want to fight this guy either. Okay, another tier 4 Spider-Man. True. Like, you're seeing all the same teams. This is gonna become boring so fast. This is already boring. This is already super duper boring. And this is the first day. We're still in the first 24 hours of this shit, and it's massively boring. And all you do is see the same teams over and over again. It completely failed, in my opinion. This is a complete failure of a game mode right now, because it's basically it's the same thing as Battle World. It's just a permanent Battle World. There's no difference here. Yeah, it looks prettier than Battle World. Yeah, you can get rid of the damage numbers. That's really cool. I hope they add this in other game modes. That's nice. But that's not good enough. That's not good enough. Look at this. Jean is still strong enough. Look, Jean is still strong enough. with a good build, she still dominates. There's no difference here. This is they completely failed on this, and I'm really focusing on this because this is the most important part. If they had created a system whereby players were actually encouraged and rewarded for trying out different teams, this game mode, in my opinion, would be a much bigger success. But as it stands right now, it is a massive failure because it's going to become so unbelievably boring to fight the same team for 2 months straight. It's only 5 matches a day, but that's still 150 matches a month. That's 300 times you have to fight Jean. That's 600 Jeans because they all revive. It's beyond absurd that they actually thought that this was going to work without having a restricted list, without having permanent bans on characters. It just does not work, guys. There's no point in releasing a game mode where you only have to use 5 characters in a game that has 254 usable characters. What is the point of releasing new characters? Because all we're going to do is we're going to compare. We're going to say, hey, I've got this massive knife. This is my Jean Grey. And I've got a cell phone. I wonder which one does more damage, the knife or the cell phone? Oh, the knife does more damage. And then you're going to release another new character. And we're going to say, hey, is this new character better than the knife? Oh, it's not better than the knife? Okay, I'm just going to keep using the knife. And clearly the ban system doesn't work because the very first month, they slapped Jean with a 300% damage decrease and a 35% defense decrease, and she's still the best. She's still the best. It's completely untenable. This is completely, like, they're out of their minds. So they need to do a bunch of things, okay? The first thing they need to do is they need to introduce a restricted list. They need to use a restricted list, and they need to rotate the list every week. Even if they keep the seasons 2 months long, or whether they reduce it to a month or whatever, having a weekly rotating list means that over the course of the month or over the course of 2 months, you're going to see different characters. It's going to feel refreshing. It's going to feel fun. But I think the restricted character list is not enough. So I think what they need to do, which would be a lot easier, and it would actually mean that they don't have to do the restricted character thing, is to just make it so that you can only use each character 1 time per day. Why am I able to use the same team over and over again? It doesn't make any sense. In a game where the characters are the content, the fact that you can repeat the content over and over and over again with the same characters is the worst part. Imagine if you could use the same character over and over for World Boss. This game mode would be shitty. It would be so boring because you would just go in and you would fight the hardest boss with your best character 5 times. And that's so boring. That's unbelievably boring. One of the best parts of World Boss is that you have to build different teams. So why don't they apply that logic to other game modes? It blows my mind. This one issue is basically the whole video because nothing else matters. If they leave this in as is, this game mode is dead. Dead. This game mode is immediately dead because it's boring as hell. I don't want to fight the same team 300 times a month. Or 150 times. Like, I just don't want to do that. No one wants to do that. That's boring. That's stupid. I don't care what restrictions you like. They can make it different so that if you don't have many characters on your roster, you can use each character twice per day or 3 times per day. And then the bigger your roster gets, the fewer number of times per day you can use the character. Like I understand that there are some, ways around this, some creative ways around this to not punish players who don't have a wide roster. And I can certainly understand some people watching this video and saying, oh, Alex, you're saying that because you have every single character. So of course you could make 5 teams, but I can't make 5 teams. I can hardly make 1 team. I understand that. But the whole point of making players choose multiple teams is that it's going to create diversity. I do have 5 really strong PvP characters, and that's the team I'm using. But I don't have 25 really strong teams, right? Or really strong characters. I don't have 5 really strong teams. So some of my teams are going to be weaker, which means if your strongest team fights my weakest team, you actually have a good chance of winning. That's the point. That's what makes it fun. Nobody wants to be seeing the same 5 characters over and over again. It's like Groundhog Day. You're trapped in a simulation, right? It's boring as hell. You're just going to see Jean, Gore, Spider-Man, Thor, Thanos, and Hulk. It's going to be the same shit over and over again, and Carnage. Jean, Gore, Carnage, Hulk, Spidey. It's just going to be the same shit. I cannot believe that they released this game mode without tweaking that. It's incomprehensible. And clearly they didn't test this game mode properly, because if they did, they would know that these buffs are meaningless. These buffs are completely meaningless. The characters are way too strong, right? Honestly, for these buffs to matter, the battlefield effect would have to be something like Phoenix Force characters do not revive after dying. Just take away Jean's revive. Like, the buffs need to be so radical to encourage diversity. Otherwise, you just get the same shit. Look at this. I'm just going to scroll randomly. Okay, rank 60. Look at this shit. It's all the same shit. Everything's the same except Adam Warlock. Let's scroll a little bit more. These are just random players. Guys, this game mode has not even been out for 24 hours, and the meta is already just the 4 best characters plus a random support. Slap on a Colossus, slap on a Wasp. It's just the same shit. This is boring. This is beyond boring. I'm not knocking MFF Doom. He's a great guy, but it's the game mode, right? It's the game mode's fault. It's the game mode's fault. So, yeah. This one issue is basically the whole video. Team diversity, this is a massive, massive problem. But I'll get to the other problems because I did write them down and it is important. But hopefully that rant really gets through to the developers, because otherwise this game mode is dead and they just wasted their time developing it. And I'm just going to be mad at them for wasting our time and getting our hopes up for nothing. The second problem is the season length. The season length being 2 months is just absurd. Look at this. Season resets in 51 days and 23 hours. This is nonsense. My guess is that they wanted to make the season last longer so that they could justify having a longer battle pass, so that they could justify having the battle pass be more expensive, because, by the way, this battle pass is more expensive. It costs $28 Canadian. It's double the cost of the silver. Like, this battle pass is 14. It's double the cost. So the regular upgrade on the battle pass for Otherworld Battle is double the cost of the battle pass that gives you a mega rank up ticket. So it's just absurd. But I'm pretty sure they made it 2 months so they could make a super long upgrade. They could make a 100 level instead of a 50 level upgrade so that they could justify this ridiculous price. I honestly think that it's stupid. I think that the rewards should stay exactly the same, but the season should be reduced to 1 month. I think a 2-month season is just stupid, especially because we know the devs are not going to tweak the buffs. We know the devs are not going to change the battlefield effects. So if the battlefield effects suck in the next season, we're just stuck with them for 2 months. Who knows, right? Who knows what kind of garbage they're going to cook up, right? They might do nothing for the battlefield effects, or they might have a battlefield effect that's like, there are no battlefield effects. Oh, we're so quirky. Our restrictions are no restrictions. Ooh, we're so creative. And then you just have to sit with that for 2 months. So literally, the meta may be completely unchanged for 4 months out of the year. 1/3 of the year with the exact same meta. It's just absurd. It's absurd. So yeah, I think 2 months is way too long. I think 6 weeks is the absolute maximum, but more likely 1 month should be the season. It makes sense. We don't have any other content that rotates monthly besides story mode and, of course, the regular battle pass, so it falls in line with those things, and it just makes way more sense. 2 months is just ridiculous. There's no game that does 2-month seasons unless it's like some massive, PC game like Destiny 2 or whatever, Fortnite. But again, those games have way more content, so that's why it makes sense to have such a long season. This doesn't have much content, so there's really no need for the season to be that long. And then the third problem, the least important problem in my opinion, is the rewards problem. And the rewards problem is actually not going to be what you think it is. So without getting into too much detail, I have already done the math on the tokens. I think that the amount of tokens that we get, the amount of warrior mementos that we get, is actually decent. I'm not going to say that it's good or perfect, but I don't think it's bad or horrible. But here's the problem. The problem is that the thing that makes Otherworld Battle interesting and unique is the battlefield buffs, right? These battlefield buffs, they don't exist, and I'll buy one here, right? I'm going to buy one here. They don't exist in any other game mode. They don't exist in Alliance Conquest. They don't exist in Timeline Battle. They don't exist in, Alliance Tournament, right? So you can see here I have an Ignore Dodge buff on Jean Grey, and I have a Taunt buff now, and I can actually even level up the buff. So this is really interesting. This is really interesting depth and design. Why is it a problem? And we're just going to go ahead and equip it on Carnage. And it makes sense to equip the Taunt on Carnage because he has the immortality buff, so he'll be able to taunt. That's really cool. Why is this a problem? Why is it bad design that they've done this? Because the price of the tokens, the price of the buffs in tokens is the same currency you use for the upgrade materials. And it's the same currency you use for these materials. So you're essentially asking the player to choose, hey, player, do you want to buy these materials so that you can get stronger heroes? Or do you want to use these tokens to get buffs? You choose. Most players, of course, are going to say, I'm just going to hoard tokens and get the Carbonadium. Or I'm going to hoard tokens and get the Soul of the Faltine. Of course players are going to say that. Of course they are. And before you ask, spoiler alert, you don't get enough tokens to buy out the whole shop. So you're going to have to make some tough decisions on what you buy and what you skip, right? So players are not going to buy the battlefield buffs. They're going to hoard all of the warrior tokens to get the rewards that they deem most valuable. That's what any logical, sane player would do. They're gonna hoard their tokens for Carbonadium and Soul of the Faltine. And then when they've bought those out, then maybe they're gonna look at the Cosmic Cube fragments. Maybe they'll start looking at the Rune of the Unknown or these element rune selectors. Who knows, right? But that's what any sane player will do. The last thing, or they're gonna look at the CTP, or they're gonna look at the Odin's Blessings chest. The last thing they're gonna do is look at these buffs. So you're telling me that the thing that makes your game mode unique is going to be ignored by the majority of your players, because the way you've designed the game mode punishes the player for engaging with the content. Does that sound like a smart idea to you? No, it doesn't, right? It's like you're telling someone, hey, I made this really cool piece of art, and I'm gonna give you $5, but you can buy food or you can buy the really cool art. What are you gonna buy with your $5? Are you gonna buy the food that you need, or are you gonna buy the really cool art? You're gonna buy the food. Of course, anyone would do that. So here's how they fix this problem. It's a very simple fix, and it avoids all of their bad design decisions. The first thing they have to do is give players more tokens. If you just give players a larger surplus of warrior mementos, I'm calling them warrior tokens, then they'll be more inclined to buy these buffs. You can get around this other ways by, giving players more rewards for buying buffs so that it sort of pays for itself. It's kind of like recycling or refunding. The second thing they can do is to just give players one free level 1 buff per day. That's not that many buffs because you can't have any duplicate buffs, and that means that they're only accruing 7 buffs per week. It's really not that many, and in the grand scheme of things, these buffs are not that strong at level 1. For example, if you look at my buffs at level 1, this one right here, 5% ignore dodge. That's not very OP. So even if you give that buff away for free to players, and again, you could just give them like a free token or a free whatever that they can use to trade for one level 1 buff, right? But then they still have to use tokens to level up the buffs. So that way, by giving players some, you give them a jump start, you give them a little push to try out the system by giving them free buffs. Then they start to like the buffs, they start to see themselves winning or losing because they had buffs or they didn't have buffs, or the enemy team had better buffs or stronger buffs or more tactically, strategically advantageous buffs. So you say, oh, maybe I should, that seems kind of worth it. I like winning this game mode. You know what? I got this buff for free. I didn't spend tokens on this buff, but I will spend some tokens leveling the buff up. Sure, I'll level it up to 10%. That seems pretty good. Wow, now I can level it up to 15%. See? But all of that has to start from a place where the player is comfortable because they have enough tokens. They're not being, shortchanged on these warrior mementos. They have enough of them to go around, and they're being given free buffs now and then in order to sort of kickstart their collection and kickstart their curiosity, because that's the whole point, right? You're curious about how to make your team stronger. You don't necessarily have the resources to just go and make your character stronger through Odin's Blessings, CTPs, etc. But you have these buffs here. So you think up a strategy and you're like, oh, I'm going to use this buff and that buff, and we're going to combine them into this really cool idea. Right. Again, this only works if players feel comfortable spending their warrior mementos here. And that's only going to happen if the players already feel like they have enough to buy these. But as it stands right now, players are so worried that they're not going to have enough, and the math supports this, that they're not going to have enough warrior mementos for these more important rewards, that they're never going to pay attention to this. The only people that are going to pay attention to this are the giga whales who can just use money to buy these materials and don't need them. That's really stupid, and it means that you've designed the most interesting part of your game mode with the least number of players in mind. So yeah, That's my take on this game mode right now. I know it was a long video. Thank you for listening to it. And if you agreed with what I said, and if you think this game mode needs, a second, third pass, please share the video, like the video, comment, just boost the engagement on the video overall. Reposting it on social media helps just to get the devs' attention so that we can hopefully get them to address the flaws with this game mode and improve it so that we can have a piece of content that will be fun in a year, that will be fun in 2 years, rather than a piece of content that I can predict will be boring as hell in 1 month. Thanks so much for watching. Take care.